Hey, we're live. All right. So let's get people to introduce themselves first. We can start with JD and then work down to Katrina.
Alrighty. My name is JD Gonzales. I am a writer over at Covenant Comics. I have a Kickstarter going for my comic book Crossbones, which is live on Kickstarter. And yeah, that's me.
Salutations. My name is Dustin Brunell. I'm the writer and creator of The Listener, as well as Greed. I own Half Cowabunga Comics, and we publish as well. So, yeah, that's me.
All right. I am Todd Zverloff. I didn't know if he had something else to say. I'm sorry.
Hey, Kyle.
My name is Todd Zverloff. I am the CEO, creator, CFO, everything of Singularity Studios Publishing, a thing I just made up to put on the back of my comics. I currently have a comic called Confidence on Kickstarter right now. Go ahead, Katrina.
All right. Well, I'm Katrina Roets. I own and run Cat Scratch Press, which has two folds. It publishes all my books. Convenient, right? And then I'm also an editor, so I work on comics and novels as well.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, you and Chuck are the two editors that I really know. I feel like there's way more, but those are the only two.
And we're in constant competition with each other.
Yeah.
Chuck's winning, just so you guys know.
But
I mean, Chuck's
as
my
I say,
editor, so I really can't.
yeah, he's mine too. So you might have to do some. You got to grease the wheels a little bit or something.
I'm not doing, I got my last big job though because I showed off pictures of my cats. So if anyone's really into cats, I'm willing to share.
So let's start with GD. So what's your little elevator pitch for Crossbones?
Elevator pitch. All right. Are we going to the top floor or are we just going on one floor up? So Crossbones is basically about this cartel member who is imbued with the weird and strange ability to control his bones, and it's really freaky. And with that, he is kind of faced with the challenge of righting the wrongs of his past, and that's kind of like the main theme of the story, but as well as taking down the cartel that has betrayed him. And so it's got like, crime and, drama to it, but it's also, inspired by the supernatural and like superheroes, because that's what I like. So, yeah.
Right on.
Dustin, what is your
Oh, man. So elevator pitch for Greed's real difficult because it's a spinoff. So I'll give you guys a short synopsis of Greed. Greed is like a like my Let My Hair Down book is how we put it, because the listener is very serious and it's real, out there and real hyper violent and whatnot. Greed's a lot of fun. It's about a 10-year-old kid and his monster under the bed. That's not to say that it's also not super wild and monstrous and whatnot, because it is. But it's a lot of fun. Like what does a 10-year-old kid do when he's introduced to gods and demons, and how does he survive in this world with this being that says he's his best buddy? How do you trust a little green guy that came out from under your bed? So that's basically what it is. The antics between the two of these characters, dealing with theology and characters from it, and mythology as well. What's going on, how they're going to survive this war that's coming that they find out about, and what's the inner story behind the little dude from under the bed? What's he hiding from this kid? So, and we've got, for those of you that have read The Listener in book 3, we'll start seeing crossover characters from both series. So I'm really excited about that. Hey, man, everybody's got to have a name for theirs. Mine's actually got like 3 of them. So.
Okay, Todd, what's your elevator pitch?
All right, so my story, Confidence, Volume 1, follows the exploits, I guess, if you will, of Alan, who is a intergalactic con man, basically. Sorry, I've said this a million times, and it's like it's totally new. He's a con man in space, 32nd century. and he is cruising around on a space cruise ship, a luxury cruise liner, and he is sort of charming and conning his way through all the passengers and the crew members to obtain small pieces of a puzzle that you don't really get the whole picture of until the end of the book. So you just see him kind of going around doing his thing. He narrates a lot of it, talking about what he's doing and how he's doing it more than the why, and then find it all out at the end. So it's more comedy, lighthearted, I should say, maybe not totally comedy, but we got a sort of lighthearted nature to it. It doesn't take itself too seriously.
That's awesome. Okay.
Sounds really cool.
Kat, you don't have a comic, you have a book.
I don't have a comic. I am the odd girl out on most of these shows. They just let me in because I work in comics. So like, close enough. She has art in her book. We'll call it good. Guys, I am the author of Apo's Army, which is my current book on Kickstarter. It is 20 plus short stories for kids all about cats, based on actual real cats, most of which live in feral cat colonies down in Florida. If you follow me on Instagram, I've been posting some of the pictures of the actual cats that the stories are based on. And ding, that's my time.
Sorry. I made money.
Oh, well.
Like
Not on my
Congratulations.
Kickstarter, unfortunately.
Yeah, the Kickstarter.
Yeah, the Kickstarter is doing really well. We are actually, I believe, 4 backers away from our next backer goal, and only about $51 from our next stretch, or from our first stretch goal. So I'm super excited.
Yeah, you're almost to 50 backers. That's cool.
Almost. Which is why I'll be buying some labels.
Yeah.
Right on.
Sponsored by Avery Labels.
There you go.
That's right.
You know what?
This podcast is
I
brought to you by.
Buy the generic Amazon ones. They're the same size and they're like half the price.
It's
What I do.
Okay.
Yeah, Kyron's. I also have a Facebook group called the Rowdy Roets fan page or something like that Kyron started up for me. So if you guys are interested in joining my little fan club, feel free to look it up on Facebook. Hey, Jack.
Right on. Right on. Do we get like cool cat memes and stuff if we join that group? Because I'm about that.
Really, I'm gonna lie. It's kind of a quiet group. We mostly post when we have things projects that are coming up.
Gotcha.
And everybody's welcome to post their projects in the group.
Sweet.
Don't make it your personal like Kickstarter graveyard, but pay Kyron. Yeah, Kyron's my other admin, so if you pay him $5 and you can join. But I tell you what, you back the Kickstarter, we'll waive that fee.
Yeah, back to everybody's Kickstarter here.
That's right. Anybody's Kickstarter. If you can show me you backed any of the Kickstarters, we'll waive the $5 entrance fee.
Right on. Right on.
So
Well,
Todd
I just backed Dustin.
I
was gonna say I just backed Dustin's and JD's
Thanks.
because I
Wow,
haven't done
thank
it yet.
There you go.
I backed Katrina's when it first started though. So
That's true. He did. Yeah.
I'm going to say this in response to that. I've heard incredible things about Confidence, so that is my guilty pleasure that I'm going to end up backing before the end of this. So I like the concept. I was a huge fan of like Fifth Element and stuff. So the idea of being on a luxury space cruise liner where you're trying to jack stuff from people is very interesting to me.
yeah, there was a little bit of that. Honestly, it was supposed to be Ocean's 11 in space.
Right.
Was sort of my idea, but it's not quite that complex of a character study and plot study. But because it's only one book. But yeah, Fifth Element has always been one of those visual things that just blew me away. So
is that the Kickstarter you got, Todd? That's the new one you got going? Yeah. Okay. Nice.
I can actually answer that question that he just asked. I think it's the most unusual reward so far that I've gotten from Dustin was soap.
Oh, okay.
I think it smells really good. My girlfriend doesn't think so. I got it in the mail, and then like the mailman was talking to me about comics or whatever, and he's like, "This smells different. I'm like, yeah.
It doesn't smell like comics.
Yeah. My whole apartment just smelled like the whiskey soap, and I'm like, I actually feel clean when I feel like
Nice. Gotta get me some.
Right. It was a really interesting concept because when they came, like when we were doing the listener When Winds Weep, it was like, what can we do to? You always want to stand out, right? You want to be remembered, especially when you're putting out a book every month. You know what I'm saying? People have got to remember who you are as a writer or whatever. And I was like, man, what can we do? And my buddy sent me this ad, and he was like, these guys make soap. And I was like, okay, it's soap, right? But it was like how to break that third wall again, or the fourth wall. How do you get past that with people? Like me, I like to sit and I like to drink just a really nice drink when I'm sitting and reading a book. I put the kids out, they're not allowed in the office if I'm hanging out and trying to study or write or whatever else. And it was like, man, what else brings you into this? Because not everybody drinks, you know what I'm saying? So what can bring you into it? And I was like, man, smell is such a big thing because we write about PTSD a lot, and where that takes you. Well, smells and music do the same type of thing for people, So I was like, man, if we could come up with a smell that was just like what I imagined our book would be like, it would be like whiskey and, gunpowder. And that was where it went. So. Yeah. It came out really good.
Like your book now,
you feel clean when you watch with it. Like it's not like when you're like, they got that. What is that? The dude that jokes about having like the musty balls thing. You see it on the internet all the time. The Sasquatch soap or whatever, right? So it's like, man, that's not a joke. I seriously thought all that was a joke. They're like, oh yeah, this, the liquid soap isn't good for your body and whatnot. So I researched it and I was like, holy cow, I can send people something that's actually good for them and it's interesting. So
Gotta get me some.
It's vegan. I don't know why they said that. Like, I'm not gonna eat the soap.
It's whiskey.
You never know. Somebody might.
Hey man, you just don't want to drive down the road after you've washed with it and get pulled over. That's great.
Yeah.
You should sell that at cons because I've heard that people are smelly there.
I'm not trying to hurt anybody's feelings. So
imagine you get pulled over and you smell like whiskey. Sorry, officer, it's just my soap.
That's right.
All right, sir, come out of the vehicle. You're coming with me.
We'll take that sobriety test real quick. I'm sure I can do it. I can't do the alphabet backwards, I don't think, but it'll be all right.
Can anybody?
Like Mac? I don't know, man.
No.
Why?
ZYX?
Yeah. That's not great.
I had a fan last night who actually added a stretch goal for me to my campaign.
Wow.
Apparently, if I hit $10,000, I'm getting a new kitten.
Oh,
that's cool.
I was going to joke about if you hit a certain stretch goal, you mail a cat to everybody.
I've got 5, so the top 5 backers are going to get a cat.
Just that's too much. Just a piece of a cat.
That
would be better.
I'll take little snippets of hair off.
Yes, just hair.
Yeah, hair.
Yeah.
Hairball. Yeah. That's what I meant.
Put it in a little satchel and,
Here's the ear. No.
You thought
this is a kid's book, guys.
I think I got PETA on speed dial.
Yeah, seriously. Have you seen this Kickstarter?
So Todd Rayner has joined us.
Yeah, sorry, I was a little late. The other one, I was going to do it at 2:00, and then he did it at 11. I'm like, oh. And then
everybody here can.
Once you start talking, the time flies, right?
Yeah. So yours isn't live yet, but I put the link in the comments.
Thanks.
Yeah. So what's your elevator pitch for Ice Pick?
Elevator pitch. What is that? I'm just playing a creator, artist guy, writer thing. I don't, it's a kind of a throwback to 90s superheroes. It's a lot of influence from the early 90s Image stuff. Spawn, Batman, that kind of. It's a darker book. It's basically about the story of a guy. His parents were killed. He was left for dead. And the story, issue 1, starts out where he is trying to find out who killed his parents, who left him for dead. He's got superpowers. He got those in the accident, his attempted murder type of thing, because great superpowers come from medical, scientific accidents. And he's got the power of moisture. He can control moisture. He can, disappear into smoke, make ice stuff out of moisture, ice picks and weapons and whatnot. And it literally kind of issue 1 to issue 4. Issue 4 is launching Friday. It is kind of like the bookend. It's the first major story arc. So he kind of ends up getting taken into the 9th circle of hell. So there's a supernatural element. Fiance thinks he's dead. His best friend is helping him figure out how he's got these powers. And it's, if you like 90s superhero, hopefully you dig this. It's a lot of fun.
So I have one question about
that's what he looks like.
Awesome character, right? So we've all talked, in the past, and everybody's talked about the meta level abilities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the end all be all abilities. Well, someone that can control moisture, I mean, our whole body consists of moisture, right? Yeah. So if you just wanted to be the dude that just walks around just like ripping the moisture out of people, I'm not trying to be. I'm being dead serious. If he was that guy, if the character is there, what kind of personality does he have? What keeps him? I'm curious. What keeps him from being that guy?
So it has a lot to do with, and I haven't really touched on the origin is there, and I do have a origin issue plan, but it comes down to the kind of person you are, and it's almost like that whole Thor thing. You're not worthy to pick up the hammer. Okay, it's also the whole Captain America thing, which I really liked what they did in the movie, the first movie, is that, let's pick someone that's worthy, not someone that's strong and fast and all these things, because your intentions is what matters. And, Ice Pick, his intentions of who he was before this happened means a lot. And it means he's not that ravenous, crazy person like Magneto, taking everyone, killing everyone. He's goal-oriented. It's who killed my parents, who tried to kill me, and I want to get back. It's, in a way, it's a weird love story because I want to get back to my fiance. I want to get back to the life I had. And it's dark in some of the aspects, but it's also kind of a happy story where it's a love story. It's a, superhero crazy, and I pull like Dante's Inferno influences, and I love the supernatural kind of stuff. So you have like demons and all kinds of craziness. I mean, it's just really.
I was trying to get you down that path of craziness. You know what I mean? I just find it interesting. Where as a writer, I find people's influence is interesting. And I do like 3 shows of my own a week, so I can't help but ask questions every now and then. I'm like, oh, that's really cool.
I'm happy to answer. Yeah, it's taken me years because I do this book by myself. I'm writing, drawing, coloring, lettering, publishing. I mean, the whole thing. So issue 4 is like the closure of this major story arc, and then I have other things planned after that.
Sweet.
I'm actually going to get an art team so that I can actually produce stuff on a regular basis.
Right on.
That was my goal. Last year was to get like teams for certain books, and then now my team is Adam Fields and my colorist that I'm using for everything, Fibri, or however you say his name. He's from Indonesia.
Yeah.
And Jerome Gagnon.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's my team.
Adam's a beast, man. He's been on my cover since my first book, so I'm really excited to see him work with you. I'm really excited to see Scales. You know what I mean?
I can't wait to print it.
I'm super stoked about that because
I just want the Seer Chronicles to be like finished so I can.
Right. Well, I can imagine.
I'm so sorry to like people. Like I just sent like a million emails to like everybody that backed that Kickstarter from like last year, and I'm like, I definitely know that I made a mistake of doing that Kickstarter way before. I didn't know the workload that Dan had, so definitely get that. So that's why Adam Fields is like fast. He's absolutely got, like ink was like 20 pages, but like he got that done like pretty quick. So
right. Well, he just did like, what do you do? 85 sketch covers and like like
you're
muted.
Todd. You're muted.
Well, God, you should be listening to what I'm saying anyway. No, it's funny. Adam lives by me, and he actually I put out an anthology of because I'm in Ohio, and I put out an anthology a few years back of Ohio-based creators, and I got Adam on board, and that's how I met him. And so yeah, he's a good dude. I see him at shows and such around my area.
Are you from Ohio?
Yeah, I'm from Akron.
Oh, yeah, me and my wife originally from Cleveland.
Oh, okay. Yeah, just south. Yeah.
I went to Canton a month ago.
Yeah, I remember when you mentioned that.
You're not missing much.
Where'd you end up eating?
We went. Oh my gosh. We didn't go to the one place because everybody said it was in the neighborhood had gone downhill.
Oh no.
So I was like, okay, well, we're not
Canton.
gonna go. We're not gonna go there then. We found a place. What was it called? Bubba's. Is that the name of it?
Can't say I'm familiar.
Really good food.
Oh, good.
We discovered a ice cream place that had boozy milkshakes, so that was awesome.
Ooh.
My oldest is already talking about we need to go back just for the food that we found.
Well, I mean, geez, go to Cleveland then. Way better things up north.
There's some good food there.
Yeah. Anyway, we could talk.
Yeah. I'm not from Ohio, guys.
I could sidetrack everyone for a while. Yeah, I've lived in the same 10-mile square radius of my entire life. So
Oh man, I wouldn't even.
It's not.
I couldn't even live like that, man. I've been, bro, and it's wild, right? Because we start seeing creators from all over the world, and it's like, hey, I've been there, I've never been here, and it's really cool like that. My whole team, there's only 4 out of the 20 people that work with me that live in the U.S. So it's really
my whole art team lives in Chile. So.
Yeah, see, there you go. That's awesome.
Yeah, power of the internet, man.
Tell me about it. I mean, that, and thank you, Google Drive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Be a bad world without it.
Yes, not so much thank you, Dropbox, because I don't want to pay for you.
Right.
But and a comic turns out to just be big enough by the time it's all said and done to not quite fit on the free account.
Oh man, I wouldn't even know what to do. I've got 3 books going right now, plus a novel, plus a tabletop game, and I'm just and you're getting TIFF files left and right, and you're like, oh, that's really cool. Could you put that in the drive so the rest of the team can grab it? Oh, that's really cute. Oh, better update my drive. You know what I mean? Because now there's 18 people using the same drive, and they're looking at things and they're going, hey, look, this is great. Hey, look, I just updated some text in this one. Can we move that to the printable folder? And it's like, okay, sweet. I'm just going to give you guys all access, and you can move things around. And then right before I'm ready to print, I'll go look for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have 100 terabytes on Google Drive or something like that.
Oh my God.
Jeez.
I'm using 50 of that, and most is because of podcast episodes. I do too many podcasts.
You've got multiple books going right now, don't you? Don't you have
there's that. Then there's scripts that I wrote, and then there's old scripts that I wrote, and I found because I wrote the second script for our video game already.
I'm excited about that, man. I'm really excited about it.
Yeah.
You were like, it's going to be in October this year, and I'm like, what? That's awesome. I mean, that's incredible because the guys that did Suikoden from when we were kids have come back and are doing Frog and Hare is the name of the company that they came out with, if I'm not mistaken. But they're doing a new game, and they got a $8 million Kickstarter, something like that. Game. And they're like, hey, we'll see you guys in 2 years. You know what I mean? And it's 2 years, $8 million. What? Yeah. So really cool stuff coming out of video games and Kickstarter right now. I mean, that's an awesome way to, and for artists as well, because it's not just your video game artists anymore and your video game companies. You're looking at character design artists from all over the world and all different types of aspects. So it's a really cool thing. Kickstarter is great. I hope we don't lose Kickstarter because people are taking advantage of this. Put a bid in for $2,000 on Kickstarter every time. Like me. But to be fair, I don't make much more than that on Kickstarter right now. So
I haven't made a profit off of Kickstarter yet. That's why it's funny when the one that I'm helping right now, like promoting Heavens Decoded.
Yeah.
Everybody should go back.
Well, see, I haven't. It's $6,000 per book for me. You know what I mean? I've not made a profit yet. I broke even on the listener like a month ago, and that came out in November. You know what I'm saying? But it's like you look at things like that, and like when you started putting out books, and that's how you have to weigh your successes. Not like, did I make enough this month or did I make enough next month? It's how long have you been putting these out? Because indie's very different than owning a comic shop, because I can buy Marvel books and when they come out, they're really hot, right? But 2 months down the road, very few people are buying the same book that came out when it first came out, versus indie books trend in a higher way as they go further. It's like they have more faith in the producers and the creators than they did originally, because now they're like, oh, the book's solid, it'll stay.
Well, I mean, I'm sure we've all backed those #1 issue Kickstarters for an indie book, and
for sure,
that was it.
Absolutely.
Well, that's a great point, because the last guy I was talking with, he was asking about, he went on Kickstarter, was looking for anything else that I've done, and I kind of had a cancel campaign for issue 2, ended up being on Indiegogo. But it was, I ended up talking a lot about how I just didn't feel I had the support as a indie creator on Kickstarter to do a good campaign, and now that I'm issue 4, it's kind of humbling and just shocking as an individual creator. I don't have an art team, and there's, a ton of people interested, and it's more than I've ever seen. But you're right, it's that trending where they're seeing like, oh, you did issue 1, oh, here's issue 2, here's issue 3, oh, now here's issue 4, and it's like that's where the snowball really starts to grow.
That's exciting to even hear from people that have been doing it for longer than myself. What I'm saying? Like we're thankful, all our Kickstarters have been successful, but it's not like it's been like massive margins. You know what I'm saying? It was like, hey, we hit goal and we got a couple $100 after that. You know what I mean? That, and that's cool. And that takes us to a realm of, not complacency, but at least like we have a little bit more confidence than we would have had they not met goal. The percentage of people that don't make goal is so much higher if you actually go and pay attention to it. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people that don't make goal. So it's awesome to see people, and to be in a room. The first time I did a show with Greg, I was in a room of people that had not done Kickstarter, like had not succeeded. So I was in the room and I was like, whoa, you know what I mean?
I wonder what the percentage. I mean, I get that, the percentage of people who succeed or fail at Kickstarter. But a lot of those ones that fail, like, you go on there and, they have like $80, like 30, 29 days in, and you're like, I've never heard of this thing.
Yeah.
But like, I wonder what the actual like numbers are for people who are trying, for people who are like me, like I'm not even halfway funded and I only have 11 days left. And I set a really high goal, and that was very stupid of me in the beginning. But I wonder what the, I'm pushing as hard as I can every day. So I just wonder what the, like, I guess rambling thought here is I just don't ever, like, the Kickstarters I see continuously over and over again that are being, in my face on my, feed and everything. I feel like all of them end up getting funded. Like, I don't see too many that don't, for people who actually put the effort in,
It has to do with your who you surround yourself with. And I'm not trying to say that other people are not worthy of being surrounded by you, but it's who you like. It's just like anything else in this world, right? If you want to succeed, put yourself around successful people, and I get that we all see each other's campaigns. Jim Noble and I were talking about that the other night. It was like we all see each other's stuff, but at the same time, most of us will go out and support one another. And that's what creates this effect of being able to reach your goals, as long as they're not lofty goals, like they're not insane goals. Most of the time, it's your buddies that'll come in and go, "Hey, look, we love the artwork. This looks great, or it's going to be fun." So we all come in and we fund your books. You know what I mean? Because we appreciate the fact that you're doing the same thing we're doing. Like me, it's a full-time job for me. You know what I mean? All these guys get paid before the book comes out. I'm the one that is in the hole at the end of it but I have faith in my product. You know what I'm saying? So like with me, I did better with my books after my Kickstarters, you know, from my Shopify account or from shows we're doing. And thank God shows are starting again. You know what I mean? But it's like, I've done better after Kickstarter, you know, but my first one, oh my God, I thought I was going to have a coronary. It was $2,400 the first time I did a Kickstarter. That was my goal. Nowhere near what I needed to make to put the book out, but it was already done, so I wasn't worried about it, right? So I'm like, oh, $400. The end of the wire, I hit the 2,400. I hit like 2,600 is what came out, and it was like this time I made 1,500 in a day and a half, and I got stuck at like 1,500. Oh, it's Chuck. So,
What up?
No, you brought in the competition. What are you doing?
This is a one editor kind of podcast. Bro.
Come on. I'm working here.
There's competition?
Oh, God.
Not really, no.
So, but
We covered that earlier.
Todd, you know, there's a lot to be said about the fact that if you surround yourself by like-minded individuals, they'll support you versus going out. And I'm not saying don't push in places you're not, you know, aware of or you're not, you know, known in. But, you know, putting yourself around those people means you're going to see their successful campaigns. You know, like if you go into like the groups, the comic creator groups and stuff like that, and you'll look around, most of those guys, if they don't fund, they take their stuff off those pages. They don't even want people to know they didn't fund. That's why you don't see it a lot of places, you know, because I don't know about you, but it would hurt my feelings. Like as a creator, I'm not trying to sound like a bitch or anything, but it would hurt my feelings. It would literally be like, man, that really sucked. I put my time and my heart and, you know, and Chuck can attest to it. I gave it all I got. And if I gave it all I got and it didn't work, I would be bummed out, right? You know what I mean? So I wouldn't want people to see my failures. What I would want was people to see what I accomplished, you know, what I did well. So those were the things I would show people. I wouldn't put a link up anymore. I'd take all the links down and I'd show you the beautiful art or I'd show you pieces of the story, snippets and stuff to get your attention and prepare for the next one, you know?
Right. No, I was more saying like when you go on actual Kickstarter though, because they leave, you know, that stuff all stays up on there.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and that's
kind of
what
You know what though? It's funny. A lot of people worry about the failure thing. Like, how will I look? How will everything look? But I gotta tell you guys, people are actually really well. Yeah, people are actually really okay with it. Like they're actually very supportive. And one thing I will tell people is, if it looks like your Kickstarter is gonna fail, let it and just keep pushing.
Yeah.
Because what ends up happening is first off, people really appreciate that you pushed and tried to the very end. They really will get beyond that, even if it's like, dude, there's no way they're gonna do it. But you keep pushing, they're gonna appreciate it. But also, what it means is that you still have access to that backer list. So when you go to do the next one, you just tell them, hey guys, so here's what I've done. I'm really excited to do this Kickstarter over again, because I've been a part of Kickstarters that have failed before. I've obviously been on books that haven't gone, and usually the second one, you've thought about it more. You've had a chance to kind of set up a new plan and understand. You know, sometimes, let's be honest, sometimes it's just your goal was unreasonable. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't a fair goal for yourself. Yes, Todd.
My goal.
He's agreeing with you.
Yeah,
He's saying his goal is unreasonable.
Yeah, I mean, Todd, I work with Todd on Confidence, which, by the way, guys, is a great book. I had a blast reading that book and being a part of it. 4,000 is not easy on your first one. So I obviously hope you make it, and we're gonna push and see what we can. But if you have to do it again, you're just like, okay, cool. Let's look again. Let's see what we can hit, and do it again. And honestly, I believe you'll hit it. No problem.
Sure.
And that's what happened with like issue 2 for me. Like I had an $800 goal and I couldn't do 800. You know, and it was. I feel it was because there just wasn't enough there. There wasn't enough social media presence. There wasn't enough support. There wasn't enough fans. You know, so I let it fail. I don't have a problem with that. Like, to me, it shows I'm human. It shows that, you know, things don't always go the way you want them to. You know, and then I kind of reassessed things, went over to Indiegogo, and was able to make things happen. So I don't know. And those two platforms are uniquely different. You know, you'll find success on one where you find zero success on the other.
Mhm.
So, it's interesting,
Yeah. I think that for me, I failed my very first one for Crossbones, and I was like super new to the indie scene. I mean, I made a book with a guy I met on Facebook, and I just threw it on Kickstarter, like just expecting, and I think that's the expectation that people have, like me, at that point in my life, where it's like I'm just gonna put it on there, and people are just gonna automatically gravitate to it, and that's like I think that a lot of newbies fall into that,
See,
because
where
I
I
think
had,
it's
like-
cool. Other people are gonna think it's cool,
I had like the opposite mindset.
Yeah.
My mindset was, okay, I'm going to put it up there and it's going to be totally ignored. And luckily, knock on wood, that has not been the case.
Yeah.
But I was sure I would get like 5 pity pledges and that was going to be the end of it.
Yeah. And then with mine, I failed, and I had a goal of like 1,000. I think I made barely more than like 100, with like 3 backers or something like that. It was pretty humiliating. And I'm not going to lie, like you guys said, it's like, that kind of stings, but, luckily I persevered, and it kind of goes back to that, thing where you guys were talking about tracking upwards, and, with the second one I ran, same goal, like $1,000, and we just hit $1,000. And with the third one, we hit like 16. And now with this one, hopefully we keep on going, but, with it comes experience, and with, confidence in yourself and in your product, with the first one that I failed, and it was a pretty big blow to my confidence. Like, should I continue to do this? But, luckily I did. And, luckily we have kind of a following, and so that's what it's all about, is just doing what you want to do. For me, this is what I love to do, and I'm going to do it regardless of what people think, and so I think that's what it's ultimately about, is just doing it, and hopefully, people like it too. I don't know.
The funny thing about failure is that it's great if you're willing to use it as a teachable moment.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
if you fail and you just are like, oh, fuck the world, this is bullshit, blah, blah, and you just snap, then you know what, man, maybe you can't handle anything. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
But like, so I to take us away from comics, I'm a big poker player, love playing poker, and one of our sayings always is, you don't learn anything from the hands you win. Always lose it from the hands you always learn from the hands you lose.
Yeah.
Because if you win, luck is involved in all this other stuff. But if you won, luck may have had a big deal to do with that, but there's a lot of other things that could have been in there too. What did I do at different moments? What was I thinking? All that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, by looking at our losses and really being able to determine, what did I do to help with that loss? Because obviously there's other things that could have happened. Like, what if you launched right before the pandemic had started?
Yeah.
And then, there was some where that happened, and that's something. And so it's like, okay, cool, I have to try again. But what things did I do wrong that went along with that might have also affected that? And so you can still, even from moments like that, even, in the middle of a hurricane, there might have been something you did wrong. Learn from it and fail upwards.
Yeah,
And
100%.
I'm one of those guys. I'm like really selfish when it comes to, I'm doing my book for me. Like I love that. I'm super appreciative. I love all the support, but at the end of the day, like, I'll still make this book if only one person read it.
Yeah.
If my wife read it and she's like, "Oh, that was cool. All right, yay, I succeeded."
Yeah.
I mean, my kids like it. Fine, awesome. But to go to the shows when I started doing this, and you would see the support at shows. Like, I can't wait. I got a show next month, and I can't wait to get back into doing these shows. And I only do a few local to Seattle, but still, like 3 or 4 a year. I mean, that's a huge thing to get out there and talk to the people and show them what you're doing. And that really garnishes a lot of support for Kickstarters and for properties and things like that. So, I just keep being stubborn and selfish, and I'd be drawing anyways. I'd be doing stuff regardless. So why not throw it up on Kickstarter? And if it happens, it happens,
I have so many stories that I'm and I have technically one true fan for Ink, because Travis just doesn't stop tagging
I'm a
me.
fan.
Doesn't shut up about that, does he? No.
So he's like, "This isn't Ink," and I was like, "Dude, I'm working on like 5 other things, like chill." So it's actually really cool to see that. But I was like, "Oh wow, I didn't think like a 20-page comic book. It's not even a full comic book. Was gonna like connect to somebody that like impactful. That's like awesome.
Yeah, it's a great
No,
feeling.
I have that one true fan. She's about 9 years old. She's the daughter of a friend, my sister's friend from high school, and she's so in love with what I write. She like goes to school. She does like virtual schooling, and she tells everybody about the latest story that she got to read. And I'm like, you know what? If I don't ever like make it bigger than that, I don't even care.
Yeah.
Because it's so her thing, and
You made an impact.
Yeah.
she wants to she wants to write her own books now, and I'm like, you know what? That's it. I'm done.
That's nice.
I had a guy at a con a couple years ago when we were doing them. He said, "I want to cosplay as Ice Pick." I'm like, "Dude, do it! Like that'd be crazy. I'd love to see
Go
it.
ahead.
You know?
That's a high
Light it
honor.
up, bro! Like, let's go."
huge.
So that's kind of fun.
That's
That's
awesome.
what I'm waiting for is like somebody to cosplay as one of my characters.
Oh,
I'll
do
I
do it
think
right
it
now.
would be kind of hard to do just because
Here, I got ink.
But
I'm cosplaying.
yeah, there you go. I got it.
There you go.
But for scales, you just got to be rich. No, just be a rich kid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty easy.
I'll work on that for you, Greg.
There you go.
Right? Trying.
Well, I mean, and we each do it. Like, Todd mentioned his motivations behind things, and I think that there's everyone has that, right? You all have your private push behind everything you do. You know what I'm saying? It's a full-time job for me, so I'm like, when a failure to me, if you ask like Chuck, is if I do something wrong and I catch it. That's my failure. That's where I have to. I better myself by knowing the small details with anything I do. You know what I'm saying? So if Buddy's like, hey, look, I really like this, but then somebody comes out and says, I don't like this. It's like, okay, well, what have I failed to reach you with? What have I done that didn't reach you as a person?
oh that would drive me nuts.
Well, and it can, you know what I'm saying? But it's different types of motivations and different pushes. You know what I'm saying? Whereas I do it because I'm like, okay, well, I've been selling comic books for almost 20 years. You know what I mean? So that you look at this fact where it's like, okay, I know what certain people like. I know what certain, demographics gravitate toward. The Listener was a very personal project, and it was very deep and emotional to me. Whereas my newer IPs are like, okay, they're fun. You know what I mean? They're interesting, and they can gravitate toward different types of people. Greed is fun because if you were an 80s kid, who didn't like Little Monsters? You know what I'm saying? Like it was a great movie. It was a fun thing going on. Fred Savage was great even at that age point in time, and Howie Mandel was just phenomenal to me when I was a kid.
How have you never mentioned My Pet Monster, though, when talking about that? Because that was a great show, dude.
So I just saw one. Actually saw two of them at the ICC show I was just at last month. Dude had one over here and one over here on his booth, and I was like, I remember having them with like the orange manacles on them. The big old teeth, orange manacles. I was like, I had a fan reach out like 3 days ago and was like, speaking of My Pet Monster, he was like, you need to make a doll for Cade. And I was like, that'd be awesome. But I was looking at minifigs I was looking at minifigs like 3 weeks ago, and I was like, $2,000 molds and $3,000 molds, and man, that's half a comic book. You know what I mean? So, maybe one of these days when I'm not breaking, and I'm thankful. Don't get me wrong when I say things like this. When I'm not breaking even, then I'll push into those types of markets and push into those other things. But it's interesting the things that people bring out, like Brian Silverback, awesome stuff. He makes those like wrestling dolls that he's got coming out. I mean, those things are awesome, and I'm all about that kind of thing. I'd love to do something like that eventually, but like I said, I'm still a new kid on the block for a little bit. So once I get out there a little bit further, I'll branch into those things.
Yeah, I go ahead.
The editor is fighting right now.
Here we go. No. No, I had somebody when my first book released. This is only my second book, and my first book released, it was Tales from the Toy Store, and so it was all about stuffed animals and their lives in the toy store. And I had somebody go, when are you coming out with a toy line? I was like, first book, guys. First book.
Yeah, there was.
And I said, and these are actually based on real toys that my kids and stuff had when they were little.
Oh, okay.
I said, so copyright issue. I can't just go around stealing like actual toy designs.
There was a guy that wanted custom Funko Pop character for one of my reward tiers on Ice Pick. I'm like, I looked into it. I found a guy that does it, but it's like $200, $170 or something. It's like there's no way someone would spend. I mean, I'd have to make it for at least $225, $250 for that tier. It would look cool. Don't get me wrong. Like, it'd be awesome, and I may do one just personally for myself. But I mean, he does the 3D molding. So there's a market, but it's an expensive market to dive into.
Yeah.
There's actually a really cool tier for Covenant Comics. Yeah. Oh, he's gonna show.
Show and tell.
So this is what we offered for the third issue Kickstarter. They're all handmade, and we found a guy, or I found a guy on Instagram. His name is Stanfield Toys, and so yeah, he makes these toys. It's interesting. You find all these intricate communities just doing things like the things that you love, and there's a whole community of people that just make toys. And I hit this guy up, and so yeah, I was like, "Can you make a toy of Crossbones?" And he did. And so for this Kickstarter, we're actually doing a 2-pack of Crossbones and his new antagonist for this issue, Sicario. And so I'm super excited. Greg's actually getting one. So
is it like a garage kit? Is it like a bash kit there?
It's like he hand molds them and everything.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Dude, take my money. Just take my money. I'm doing it. I want that 2-pack now.
I see that. Cool. Like the kits, like a bash kit, what we will call a bash kit is when you would take an action figure and you had a figure you wanted, right? Like a hero that you wanted to make, you didn't see, wasn't getting produced or anything, and these cats go and they beat up other figures to get the parts to make the figure you would like to see.
Yeah, I think that's what he does, and I like
awesome. It's it's super cool, man. It's a super cool concept. So good on you.
I was gonna actually do it for our horror anthology.
Do it. It's great. I don't
know if we're doing that or not. We were going to do a motion comic, but Hector said no to that. Instead, we're doing a match game, kind of like Candy Crush, but it's
cool.
like the antagonist of the horror anthology. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
You know what, though? There's nothing like, of course, all the trinkets and stuff are a lot of fun, but there's also nothing against really paring down. Like in Belial 1, we had a bunch of fun stuff that we were trying to throw in there. And then for 2, 1 had been so we scraped by on that campaign. We just barely funded. And so we really kind of went, man, both of us are poor as shit. What are we going to do to try to make this happen? And so instead we put a lot of money into I wanted to basically calling it moneyballing comics. Basically, I wanted to find specific cover artists that I knew pushed books and would be helpful and also really work with what we're doing. And also, when they did something, I wanted it to kind of speak to other things and really kind of be able to get other people excited about us. So instead of, bringing in toys and stuff, and there's nothing wrong with that, but just because we didn't have the money for it, we did things like we had Thomas Tenney come in, and Thomas Tenney has worked with a lot of rock and metal bands and whatnot. And also he's been with Marvel Comics. And so there was a lot there. So we had him do a Meatloaf Bat Out of Hell cover. Wow. And so he did that, and that was a lot of fun. And we put that up on a lot of Meatloaf sites and showed that off to Meatloaf fans on Twitter and tagged him and did all that kind of stuff. And then, we brought Steph Wilson in, who just has his own incredibly stupid group of people who just love what he does. And I mean stupid in the best way. I love Steph. Steph and I are so tight. He's definitely one of my dudes. And I brought him in, and he was just absolutely amazing and pushed the book so hard. And just everybody we kind of brought in, it was just because we knew that they would definitely help. And the difference between Belial 1 and Belial 2 is ridiculous. Like, we broke every single one of the numbers. What's up, Mike? We broke all the numbers. We broke everything on there. And it was just because we really tried to look at like what works and kind of how can we pare this down and still offer a lot of stuff. And so, it worked out.
It's interesting you brought that up. I'm talking with a local publisher out here to hopefully kind of get from the publisher I'm with over to a new publisher, like an actual legit publisher, not self-publishing. And, we've had that conversation about what to include on Kickstarter. And, he brought up an interesting point is, he's had a few Kickstarters funded, so he's kind of in that realm in Indiegogo. He said there's artists out there, cover artists, that's their following. So if you want a successful Kickstarter, Steph Wilson's one of them. And when you brought up Steph Wilson, it made me think about this, like, get those artists. Yeah, their style is going to fit with pretty much whatever you're doing. And he's like, those artists have such a huge following on Kickstarter. They back whatever that artist does. And it is kind of Moneyball in a way where you're using what people are going to support, you're getting those people involved that will have that support, that fan base.
We brought in all, like, if you look at my campaigns and you look at the people that are on my covers and stuff, I didn't bring in anybody that nobody didn't know.
Yeah.
In some form or fashion, and it was like even people that we brought in that huge amounts of people didn't know, they were still friends of ours that were known in the community.
Right.
Like my first book, Mike DeBalfo was one of the people that told me I should write a book. So I brought him on it, which in turn he brought Marissa Pope onto it. And that was like, okay, well, now we've got names behind this book.
Right.
When the second book came out, it was like, we're going to continue to bring names to the second book. The third book came out. Greed is, it's, even though it's an offshoot of a book, still it's its own IP, so we brought in Frank Forty, we brought in Rich Parada, we brought in a bunch of, David Acampo came over from The Listener to work on it, and even like Manny came from, Mojo, and Mojo has its own fan base going on and stuff like that. It's very important to bring in people. It's not enough just to bring in folks that you like, you know what I'm saying? You have to bring in people that can bring their own following. Just like Chuck said, there's no point in, it's money, right? Like I most of my cover artists are $350 and higher per cover. So it's like, but they bring that level of professionalism with them. They talk about our books. They mention, we're going to be like, I'm at Suncoast Comic Con at the end of the month. There are 3 other people that have worked on my books that are going to be at that show, and all of them are talking about it.
Yeah.
One of the coolest thing about Marissa is she's a good friend of mine. She's a great friend of many of my friends. On her, when you look down at her profile, it has, hey, look, I worked on Dustin Brunell's books. And that may not mean a lot to certain people, but if people are looking at cons, now they're going, where can I talk to Dustin Brunell to get a copy of his book to get Marissa to sign it?
Yeah.
And all those little nuances are what you gain from people. You bring these folks. Rich is great. Rich tags me in everything under the sun that he does. You know what I mean? Like everything under the sun that he works on. And at the same time, though, he also goes, hey, look, I worked on a cover for Dustin. You should check out the cover that I did for him. In April, you guys are seeing a ton of April stuff right now because it's Mermaid. She's really excited. She's got her own Rising Tides out right now, which is a phenomenal book in itself on Kickstarter. Awesome art book. She just did a cool crossover with my book. But stuff like that's important because these people, they give a shit about their team.
Yeah.
That's what you have to find. A contractor, that's great. You know what I mean? A contractor's great. But people that want to work with you to better themselves and to better your product is who you want to work with. I've heard Chuck say numerous times, I bring the best out of people. That's my job, to bring the best out of other people. And I think that's the most epic line because you should find a whole team like that. Not just your editor, but your artist. They should put in input. if something's not going to look great, you don't want a guy that's just going to let it go. You know, you told him to do it, he's putting it out there. You know what I mean? You don't want that. You want a guy that's going to be like, hey, man, it may look a little bit better if we do it like this. And he's not trying to step on your toes, or she's not trying to step on your toes. They're just being honest. Hey, look, I think this is a little bit better. I've been in the industry for 20 years. I think my experience may help a little bit in this, particular area that we're working on. And it's worth your money. And you mentioned the word, money, money balling, whatever. But I'll say this: scared money doesn't make money. You know what I mean? So it is what it is.
It's a business. It's a straight business, and that's what I've learned is you really have to treat it that way. You want to have successful Kickstarters, you better be willing to spend a little up front and get those people that are gonna, like you mentioned, Dustin, bring something to the table. Not just, and I'm guilty because I'm a fan first. Like, I love artwork, and I would hire someone just because I like their artwork. My buddy did a 3D cover. No one knew who the hell he was, but it was an awesome 3D cover with 3D glasses, and it works. Like, it's a really cool thing. And that's the most book I've sold. But no one knows. They bought it because it was gimmick, right? I mean, that's the whole gimmick cover thing. But I'm learning that you got to bring people involved. You got to treat Kickstarters as a business.
Even as a gimmick, though, you paid more for the 3D effect. Yeah. That's the same concept.
No, I did it myself. Like, I literally, I spent a little bit of time in Photoshop and made the 3D effect and did it all myself and had glasses, and I was like editing with the glasses on to make sure it worked.
But that's time. You
had a time investment.
It is, exactly.
Absolutely. So just like your glow-in-the-dark covers, anything like that, or your covers where you're cutting out imagery. We bought what is that? A Cricut. Just to be able to go, when we decide we want to do these covers with cutouts, we'll be able to do it because we bought the Cricut. We took the Cricut classes to learn how to do it ourselves. I'm not going to try to get my printer to do it. Love my printer, you know what I mean? But at the same time, that's a lot of work. He's got to come up with a way to cut these out. Nobody wants that stuff. So you start thinking about your time you're putting into it, and that's also valuable. Every minute you spend on your project is valuable. You can be that guy that doesn't touch it, or you could be the guy that's like, hey, look, you put your family aside for a week at a time, a month, and you do real boy work. You know what I mean? Like I said, it's a full-time job for me. So, I'm like, hey, look, I need all this time. I sell comic books and I write comic books. That's what I do. So I need all this time in this period to this period to work on things. And then I put myself ahead, months and months ahead, so I have time to go back and look at things or be able to change things or work on stuff. Because if you look at my books, I drop a book a month. So it's literally like I have an X amount of time period I have to work on each project. So if I get ahead, then I'm okay. Unless Chuck comes back and tells me something is not right, and then I got to fix it. And I will fix it. And in the fun thing working with Chuck and the fun thing working with Phil is both those guys are really honest. You know what I mean? But they're also there to make the product better. I saw a comment on a post earlier today about what is an editor. It was actually Brian Silverback's post. What does an editor actually do for you? You know what I mean? And I thought it was amazing. All these different editors that I didn't even know existed, for the most part, with the exception of a handful of them, come out and go, yeah, absolutely, Mike, absolutely. So it's like you see how these guys come out and they're like, hey, look, these are our answers. This is what we think about this. And that gives such a cool thing because the writers, you can go in and look at these answers and you can actually tailor the editor that works for you. You know what I'm saying? And I thought it was the most epic thing because it may not have even been on purpose, but it was one of the coolest things. So, Todd earlier mentioned how he sees things on Facebook. Those little teeny posts can teach you so much. You know what I mean? Like I am a fan of professional letterers. That'll change your game a lot, like immensely change your game. Editors, professional editors. It was my wife and Phil for my first for the last book. And then it was like, okay, well, you know what? Maybe I need somebody else as well. It's been doing it a lot longer. You know what I mean? So we bring Chuck in. These are upgrades that you do as you go further. It's not just your book getting more notoriety as you've been around longer. You're gaining. It's like you're leveling up. you know, your skill levels are going up.